to sleepy story facts. And welcome to this very special sleep story. One that has been made just for you, for this moment, for the exact feeling of tiredness that is already beginning to soften the edges of your day. Tonight, you are not being asked to do anything at all. You do not need to remember what you hear. You do not need to follow along carefully or hold onto any particular detail. All you need to do is exactly what your body is already asking of you: to slow down, to breathe a little more gently, and to let the quiet take over. This is your space. This is your time, and this gentle, calming bedtime story is here to stay close beside you all the way through the night. So before we go any further, take just a moment to settle in. If you have not already, let your body find its most comfortable position. Whether you are lying in your bed beneath something warm, resting on a couch with a soft weight across your legs, or simply sitting somewhere still and quiet, let your shoulders drop just a little. Let the muscles in your jaw soften. Let your hands open if they are closed, or rest if they are already still. Feel the surface beneath you, the mattress, the cushion, the floor, and notice how it is already holding you up without any effort on your part. You do not have to hold yourself together right now. You are already being held. Take one slow breath in through your nose, letting your belly rise gently, and then let it go, a long, easy breath out, releasing the last of whatever the day was carrying. And again, in slowly and out slowly. There is no rush here. There is nowhere to be, nothing to finish, and nothing left to figure out tonight. The world outside can wait. It will all be there tomorrow, unchanged and patient. But right now, in this moment, the only thing that matters is the sound of this voice and the slow, comfortable weight of your own tiredness settling over you like something warm and familiar. Tonight's relaxing story will take you somewhere very close, and yet somehow wonderfully vast, inside the science of sleep itself. Because here is something quietly remarkable, the very thing your body is beginning to do right now. The drifting, the softening, the slow release of the day is one of the most extraordinary processes in all of nature. Sleep is not simply an absence of waking. It is not a pause or an empty space between one day and the next. It is something alive, something active, something that your brain and your body have been performing together in a deep and ancient partnership for as long as human beings have existed on this earth. And tonight, as you drift gently into this deep sleep story, we are going to explore that partnership slowly, quietly, with no urgency and no effort, moving through 100 of the most soothing, most wonder-filled scientific facts about sleep, rest, and the beautiful, mysterious science of the resting mind. Long before you were born, long before anyone thought to study sleep under a microscope, or trace the quiet electricity of a dreaming brain, every creature on this planet already knew how to do it. Birds tuck their heads beneath their wings on cold, still branches. Dolphins let one half of their brain rest while the other stays gently, softly awake, so they can keep swimming through the dark water. Even jellyfish, those ancient, translucent wanderers of the deep ocean, enter periods of reduced movement and slowed response that scientists now recognize as a form of rest. Sleep, in other words, is not a human invention. It is one of the oldest gifts that life on Earth has ever given itself. And your body, right now, is reaching toward that gift with every slow breath, with every blink that takes just a little longer to open, with every thought that softens and loses its sharp edges as the night deepens around you. The first fact we carry gently into this calming narration is this: sleep is controlled, in part, by a tiny region deep inside your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It is no bigger than a grain of rice, and yet it acts as the master clock of your entire body, tracking the rhythm of light and darkness, keeping time with the slow turning of the earth itself. As the light outside fades each evening, this quiet little structure begins to send out its signal, and your brain, obedient and wise, begins to prepare. It dims the noise. It lowers the heat. It starts the long, slow process of letting you go. And tonight, that process is already well underway. You are already on your way. All you have to do is let this gentle nighttime story carry you the rest of the distance, one soft breath at a time, one quiet wonder at a time, all the way down into the most restful, peaceful, beautiful sleep. There's a chemical that your brain makes in the dark. It does not announce itself. It does not arrive with any sensation you could easily name or point to. It simply begins, quietly and without fanfare, to move through your bloodstream like a slow, warm tide coming in across a wide, still shore. It is called melatonin, and it is one of the oldest molecules in the living world, found not only in human beings, but in plants, in fungi, in ancient single-celled organisms that drifted through prehistoric seas long before anything resembling a brain had ever existed on this earth. The fact that something so fundamental to your nightly rest has been present in life for hundreds of millions of years is one of those quietly stunning pieces of science that feels, when you hold it gently in your mind as you lie here, less like a fact and more like a kind of comfort. You are not doing something new tonight. You are doing something ancient, something that life itself has been practicing and perfecting across an almost unimaginable span of time. Your brain's production of melatonin is triggered by darkness, and it is suppressed by light, particularly the short, blue wavelengths of morning daylight. As the sky outside your window deepened this evening, as the last of the pale light faded from the edges of things, a small, pinecone-shaped structure nestled deep within your brain, called the pineal gland, began its work. It received the signal from that tiny master clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus we met in the last chapter, and it responded by releasing melatonin slowly, steadily, into the river of your blood. That molecule is traveling through you right now. It is not forcing you to sleep. It is not a switch that turns the lights off. It is more like a messenger that moves through your body, whispering to every organ, every cell, every system, "It is night now." It told them, "Soften, slow, prepare." And your body, which has been listening to this message every single evening of your entire life, knows exactly what to do. Your core temperature is beginning to drop by just a fraction of a degree, a change so small you would never consciously notice it. And yet, it is one of the most reliable signals your nervous system uses to mark the beginning of the long, gentle descent into sleep. Your heart rate is slowing. The electrical activity in your brain, which during the day hums and crackles with the busy, jagged patterns of waking thought, is beginning to shift into something longer and more rolling, like the difference between choppy water and deep, open swells moving across an undisturbed sea. This is the science of the body preparing itself for one of the most regenerative processes in all of biology. And you are right in the middle of it. Every slow breath you take is part of it. Every softening of your muscles, every heaviness behind your eyes, every thought that begins and then trails gently away before it quite finishes. All of it is melatonin's quiet work moving through you. The second fact we carry into this deep sleep story is this: melatonin does not only tell your brain that it is time to sleep, it also plays a gentle role in protecting your cells. Researchers have found that melatonin has antioxidant properties, meaning it helps to neutralize certain kinds of cellular damage that accumulate through the activity of the day. While you sleep, while this molecule moves through your bloodstream in the dark, your body is not simply resting. It is quietly repairing. It is maintaining. It is doing the kind of slow, careful housekeeping that can only happen when the noise of waking life has finally stepped aside. Think of it this way: the daytime is for doing, and the nighttime is for restoring. And the beautiful thing, the thing that deserves to be said softly here in this calming narration, as you drift a little further from the waking world, is that you do not have to do anything to make this restoration happen. You do not have to try. You do not have to manage it, or supervise it, or guide it in any way. The moment you allow yourself to rest, the moment you stop resisting the pull of this ancient chemical tide, your body takes over completely and begins doing everything that needs to be done, all on its own, all for you, all through the long, still, perfect hours of the night. So let your breath go a little slower now. Let your thoughts drift without following them. Let the warmth around you feel a little heavier, a little more like something you are sinking into rather than something you are simply lying on top of. The melatonin is already there. The clock inside your brain has already spoken, and the night, wide and quiet and endlessly patient, is already holding you gently in its dark and restful hands. There is a place that exists between being awake and being asleep, a soft, borderless territory that every human being passes through each night without ever quite being able to hold on to it. It has a name, a beautiful and somewhat mysterious one, drawn from the ancient Greek word for sleep. It is called the hypnagogic state, and it is one of the most quietly fascinating territories in all of neuroscience. You may have visited it many times without realizing what it was. It is the moment when a thought becomes an image without you deciding to make it one. It is the sensation of falling just slightly, just enough to make your body startle back to wakefulness for a single, brief instant before the pull of sleep takes over again. It is the brief, flickering appearance of faces you do not recognize, or landscapes you have never visited, forming and dissolving at the edges of your awareness, like reflections on the surface of water that is just beginning to go still. Right now, if you are breathing slowly and your eyes are closed, and the weight of the day is finally, fully releasing its hold on your body. You may already be standing at the edge of that threshold, and this gentle bedtime story is going to stay right beside you as you cross it. The science of what happens in those first few minutes of sleep is far more intricate and far more beautiful than most people ever realize. Sleep researchers divide our nightly rest into a series of distinct stages, each one with its own characteristic pattern of brain activity, its own biological purpose, and its own quiet role in the larger story of restoration that your body is writing tonight. The first of these stages is simply called Stage 1, and it is the lightest, the most delicate, the most easily disturbed. It lasts only a few minutes in most people, just long enough for the brain to begin its transition from the active, alert frequencies of waking thought into something slower and more interior. During this stage, the fast, irregular electrical waves that carry your daytime thinking begin to give way to a slower rhythm, and the muscles of your body, which have been holding a degree of readiness all day long without you ever asking them to, finally begin to soften and let go in a deep and genuine way. The third fact we carry softly into this relaxing story is this: during Stage 1 sleep, many people experience what scientists call hypnic jerks. That sudden, involuntary twitch or sensation of falling that briefly pulls you back to the surface of wakefulness. Researchers believe these small movements may be a kind of evolutionary echo, a remnant from a very ancient time when our distant ancestors slept in trees, and the brain, uncertain in those first moments of unconsciousness, sent a quick signal to the muscles to check that the body was still secure. Whether or not that explanation is entirely correct, there is something strangely tender about it. The idea that even your sleeping body carries within it an old, protective instinct, a reflex that reaches back through millions of years of human history, still quietly watching over you, even as you let go of the waking world. Beyond Stage 1, the brain moves into Stage 2 sleep, and here something remarkable begins to happen in the electrical landscape of the mind. Researchers watching the brain during this stage see sudden, brief bursts of rapid, rhythmic activity, quick, bright flickers in the otherwise slowing pattern of the sleeping brain. These are called sleep spindles, and they are generated by a region deep within the brain called the thalamus. Sleep spindles are not random noise. They appear to play a role in protecting your sleep, dampening the brain's sensitivity to outside sounds and sensations, so that small disturbances in the environment are less likely to pull you back to wakefulness. They also seem to be involved in the process of moving new memories from short-term storage into longer, more stable forms, quietly filing away the experiences of the day while you rest, doing the kind of careful, unhurried organizing that the busy waking mind never quite has time for. The fourth fact in this calming narration is one of the most quietly wonderful in all of sleep science. Your brain, during Stage 2 sleep, is not simply idling. It is consolidating. It is weaving the threads of today into the larger fabric of everything you have ever known and experienced and felt. Every piece of music you love, every face that is familiar to you, every skill you have ever practiced and slowly improved. All of it was strengthened and deepened, at least in part, by the patient, invisible work that your sleeping brain was doing in the dark. So as you lie here now, letting this nighttime story carry you further from the waking shore, you can rest in the knowledge that your rest itself is meaningful. That the act of simply allowing yourself to drift deeper is already doing something important, something generous, something quietly extraordinary for the mind that carries you through every single day, beyond the threshold of stage 2, beyond the gentle flickering of sleep spindles and the soft electrical murmur of the transitioning brain. There lies something deeper, something slower, something so profoundly restorative that scientists who have spent their entire careers studying the sleeping mind still speak about it with a kind of quiet reverence. It is called slow wave sleep, or stage 3, and it is the deepest, most physically regenerative stage of the entire sleep cycle. To reach, it is to descend, in a very real neurological sense, into the furthest, most interior chamber of rest that the human body is capable of entering. And if you are breathing slowly right now, if the weight of your limbs has begun to feel less like something you are carrying, and more like something that is simply, beautifully there, then you are already moving in its direction. The electrical signature of slow wave sleep is unlike anything else the brain produces. During the busy hours of the day, your brain waves are fast and small, and numerous, quick, jagged little signals that carry the endless traffic of thought and perception and response. But in deep sleep, those rapid patterns give way to something entirely different. Long, sweeping waves of electrical activity roll across the surface of the brain in slow, majestic rhythms, like great swells moving across an ocean that has finally been freed from the wind. These are called delta waves, and they are the brain's deepest signature of rest. They move at a frequency of less than 4 cycles per second. So slow, so wide, so utterly unhurried that they seem to belong to an entirely different order of time than the one your waking mind inhabits. The 5th fact we carry into this deep sleep story is one that connects the science of the brain to the science of the body in the most direct and physical way. It is during slow wave sleep that your pituitary gland releases the majority of your daily growth hormone. This is not only relevant to children growing taller through the night, though that is indeed part of the story. In adults, growth hormone is the body's primary signal for cellular repair. It instructs your tissues to rebuild, your muscles to recover from the exertions of the day, your skin to regenerate, your immune system to strengthen and consolidate. Every physical demand that your body met today, every step, every hour of sitting and standing and breathing and thinking, left behind microscopic traces of where that your deep sleep is quietly, methodically undoing right now. The 6th fact rests gently alongside it. During slow wave sleep, your brain also dramatically increases the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, the clear liquid that bathes and cushions your brain and spinal cord. Researchers have discovered that this fluid, during deep sleep, moves through the spaces of the brain in slow, rhythmic pulses, washing around neurons and clearing away waste products that accumulate as a natural byproduct of the brain's daytime activity. One of these waste products is a protein called beta amyloid, which has been linked to neurodegenerative conditions when it builds up over long periods. Your sleeping brain, in its deep and ancient wisdom, already knew what to do about this long before any scientist gave it a name. It simply washes itself clean, slowly and completely, in the quiet hours when you are lying still and the world outside has gone dark. There's something almost meditative about this image if you allow yourself to rest inside it for a moment. The idea of your brain, in the depths of this very night, being gently and thoroughly cleansed by slow, rolling waves of fluid moving through it in the dark. It is not unlike the image of a tide moving through a sea cave at night, unhurried and thorough, reaching every corner, leaving everything it touches a little cleaner, a little fresher, a little more ready for whatever the morning will ask of it. This is what your rest is doing for you. This is what the darkness is for. The seventh fact in this calming narration is this: people who are woken from slow wave sleep report feeling the most disoriented, the most distant from waking consciousness of any sleep stage. Researchers call this state sleep inertia, and it is a direct reflection of just how far the brain has traveled from its waking patterns. To be pulled out of slow wave sleep is to be pulled up from very deep water. The ascent is slow. The light takes time to return, and the surface of waking life feels, for a few long moments, impossibly far away, which means that right now, as you drift further into this relaxing story, as the words become less like sentences to follow and more like a soft current to float upon, you are moving toward something genuinely profound. You are moving toward the deepest rest your body knows how to give itself. And all you have to do, the only thing that is being asked of you in this entire long and gentle night, is simply to let yourself go there. There's a stage of sleep so strange, so vivid, and so unlike anything else the resting brain produces, that when researchers first observed its signature in a laboratory in the early 1950s, they genuinely could not believe what they were seeing. A sleeping person, lying perfectly still, eyes closed, body quiet. And yet, behind those closed eyelids, the eyes were moving. Rapidly, restlessly, darting back and forth beneath their thin covering of skin, as though watching something unfold in a world entirely invisible to anyone standing in the room. The researchers watched. They measured. And what they found changed everything that science thought it knew about sleep. This stage was named for what they saw: rapid eye movement sleep, or REM, and it remains to this day one of the most astonishing and least fully understood phenomena in all of neuroscience. During REM sleep, something remarkable and somewhat paradoxical happens inside the brain. While the body lies in a state of almost complete muscular stillness, held there by a specific signal from the brainstem that temporarily disconnects the motor neurons from the muscles of the limbs, a mechanism researchers call rematonia. The brain itself becomes extraordinarily active. The electrical patterns recorded from a dreaming brain during REM sleep look, in many ways, nearly identical to those of a brain that is wide awake and fully engaged with the world. The same fast, complex, richly varied waves, the same flickering interplay between regions, the same sense in the data of a mind that is intensely, vividly alive. And yet the person is asleep, deeply, genuinely, restoratively asleep. The eighth fact we carry gently into this relaxing story is one that speaks directly to the emotional life of the sleeping mind. REM sleep appears to play a profound role in the processing of emotional memory. During this stage, the brain revisits the experiences of recent days, but it does so in a very particular way. Researchers have found evidence that during REM sleep, the brain replays emotionally significant memories while simultaneously reducing the levels of a stress-related neurochemical called norepinephrine. The effect of this, over the course of a full night's sleep, appears to be a kind of gentle detoxification of difficult experience. The memory of what happened is preserved and integrated, but the raw, sharp emotional charge that it carried when it was new is gradually, quietly softened. Sleep, in this sense, is not just rest. It is the mind's own nightly therapy, its patient and private way of making the bearable out of the difficult, the integrated out of the overwhelming. The ninth fact in this deep sleep story belongs to the strange and beautiful architecture of the dream itself. When you dream during REM sleep, the regions of your brain responsible for visual processing, emotional response, and autobiographical memory become highly active, far more so than the regions associated with logical analysis or critical judgment. This is why dreams feel so real while you are inside them, and yet so strange when you try to describe them afterward. The dreaming mind is not bound by the rules of cause and effect that govern waking thought. It moves by association, by feeling, by the deep and wordless logic of image and atmosphere. A door becomes a childhood memory, becomes an open field, becomes a face you have not seen in years. The dreaming brain is not confused. It is simply operating by a different grammar, one that is older and more fluid than the structured language of daytime reason. The 10th fact rests softly here. Researchers studying creative problem solving have found that REM sleep has a measurable effect on the brain's ability to make unexpected connections between ideas. People who are allowed to complete a full cycle of REM sleep before working on problems that require lateral thinking perform significantly better than those who are woken before REM begins. The dreaming brain, it seems, is not only processing the past, it is also, in its own quiet and unhurried way, preparing the mind for what is still to come. As you lie here now, wrapped in the warmth of this nighttime story, breathing slowly and deeply, you can let that knowledge rest inside you like something warm. Whatever your dreaming mind will visit tonight, wherever it will take you in the hours still ahead, it is doing something meaningful. It is healing and processing and connecting and creating, all while you remain perfectly still, perfectly safe, perfectly held in the quiet darkness of this deep and restful night. The theater of the dreaming brain is already preparing its first soft scenes, and all you need to do is close your eyes a little more completely. Let the last held tension in your body release, and allow the gentle, ancient, endlessly mysterious science of your own sleeping mind to carry you the rest of the way. Sleep does not stay in one place. It does not settle into a single depth and remain there, still and unchanging, for the full length of the night. Instead, it moves. It cycles. It rises and falls in a slow, rhythmic pattern that repeats itself over and over through the dark hours with a regularity so precise, so consistent, that researchers who first mapped it compared it to the steady turning of a wheel every night, whether you are aware of it or not. Your sleeping brain travels through a complete cycle of all its stages, from the light, drifting threshold of stage 1, down through the electrical quiet of stage 2, into the profound restorative depths of slow-wave sleep, and then back upward again into the vivid, emotionally rich landscape of REM. And it completes this entire journey in approximately 90 minutes. Then, without waking you, without asking your permission, it simply begins again. The 11th fact we carry into this calming narration is this: the average person, sleeping a full 8 hours, will complete somewhere between 4 and 6 of these 90-minute cycles in a single night. But here is what makes this rhythm genuinely extraordinary. The cycles are not all the same. In the early part of the night, in the first and second cycles, your brain spends the greatest proportion of each cycle in slow-wave deep sleep. That profound delta wave state of physical restoration we visited in Chapter 4. Your body, in its deep and wordless wisdom, front-loads the most physically regenerative sleep into the hours closest to when you first closed your eyes. The repair work, the growth hormone release, the cerebrospinal cleansing, all of it happens most intensely and most thoroughly in those first few cycles, when slow-wave sleep is at its longest and deepest. Then, as the night progresses, something quietly shifts. The proportion of slow-wave sleep in each cycle gradually decreases, and the proportion of REM sleep gradually increases. By the time you are in your 4th or 5th cycle, in the hours just before a natural waking, your cycles are dominated almost entirely by REM sleep, by dreaming, by emotional processing, and creative consolidation. This means that the dreams you remember most vividly, the ones that feel the longest and most elaborately constructed, are almost always the ones that occur in the early morning hours, when your REM periods have stretched to 30, 40, even 50 minutes within a single cycle. The 12th fact in this gentle bedtime story speaks to what happens when this cycle is interrupted. When sleep is cut short by an alarm, or fragmented by noise, or compressed by the pressures of a busy life, because the brain prioritizes slow-wave sleep first, a shortened night does not simply remove a proportional slice from every stage equally. Instead, it disproportionately cuts into REM sleep, which is concentrated in the later cycles. A person sleeping 6 hours instead of 8 does not lose simply 25% of their total sleep. They may lose as much as 60 or 70% of their REM sleep. The stage most responsible for emotional regulation, creative thinking, and the consolidation of complex memory. This is why a shortened night so often leaves a person feeling emotionally flat or reactive the following day, even if they do not feel physically exhausted. The dreaming brain did not get enough time to do its quiet, essential work, but tonight is different. Tonight, there is no alarm set for an unreasonable hour. Tonight, there is nothing waiting on the other side of this darkness that cannot wait a little longer. Tonight, the full river of your sleep cycle is free to run its entire course. All 90 minutes of each turn, all the slow wave depth of the early hours, all the rich and restorative dreaming of the later ones, uninterrupted and unhurried, the way sleep was always meant to be experienced. The 13th fact we rest inside here is one of the most soothing in all of sleep science. Your brain knows exactly where it is in the cycle at every moment. It does not need you to track it or manage it or think about it in any way. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, that tiny master clock we met at the very beginning of this story, coordinates with the sleeping brain to monitor the cycle's progress, to ensure that each stage receives its due time, and to guide the whole extraordinary process from beginning to end with a quiet, ancient, biological precision that has been refined over millions of years of evolution. You are in the most capable possible hands tonight. Not the hands of anything outside you, but the hands of your own body, your own brain, your own deep and intelligent biology, doing what it has always known how to do. All you need to do is breathe and float, and let the 90-minute river carry you gently forward through the long, still, perfect hours of the night, long before human beings built sundials or water clocks or the intricate mechanical timepieces that eventually led to the glowing numbers on a bedside table. Every living cell on this planet was already keeping time, not by counting seconds or measuring the movement of shadows, but by something far more intimate and far more deeply embedded. A biological rhythm woven directly into the chemistry of life itself, cycling through approximately 24 hours with a fidelity so remarkable that it persists even when a person is placed in a sealed room with no windows, no clocks, no sunlight, and no external cues of any kind. Researchers have done exactly this in carefully controlled experiments and watched as their subjects continued to sleep and wake and sleep again in near-perfect 24-hour rhythms, day after day, as though the body were carrying its own private sun somewhere deep inside. This is the circadian rhythm, and it is one of the most fundamental organizing principles of life on Earth. The word itself comes from the Latin circa, meaning around, and dies, meaning day. Around a day, a rhythm that turns with the planet, that was shaped by the same slow rotation of the Earth that painted the first sunrises and sunsets over ancient, lifeless seas. Your circadian rhythm does not only govern when you feel sleepy and when you feel awake, it coordinates an extraordinary range of biological processes across every system in your body. Your body temperature, your blood pressure, your hormone levels, your digestive activity, your immune response, your cognitive sharpness, your emotional resilience. All of these rise and fall in carefully timed waves across the 24-hour cycle, orchestrated by that small cluster of neurons in the suprachiasmatic nucleus that receives its primary signal from light falling on the retina of the eye. The 14th fact we carry softly into this relaxing story is this: the circadian rhythm is not just in your brain. Every organ in your body contains its own peripheral clock, its own local version of the timing mechanism, synchronized to the master clock in the brain, the way instruments in an orchestra are synchronized to a conductor. Your liver keeps time, your lungs keep time, your heart keeps time, the cells of your skin keep time, and all of them right now, in this quiet hour of the night, are reading the same signal that it is dark, that it is late, that the world outside has gone still, and responding by shifting into the slower, quieter, more inward rhythms of the nighttime body. The 15th fact in this deep sleep story is one that connects the science of timekeeping to the oldest story of all, the story of light and darkness on this earth. The human circadian rhythm, like the circadian rhythms of almost every organism that has ever been studied, evolved in a world lit only by the sun, the moon, and the stars. For nearly all of human history, darkness was genuine and complete each night. The sky above our ancestors was not washed out by artificial light, but filled with stars, and the transition from day to night was a clear, unmistakable signal that shaped the biology of every living thing beneath it. Your body still carries that ancient calibration. When the light fades and the darkness comes, something in your deepest biology recognizes it not as an absence, but as a presence, as the arrival of the time your body was designed for, the time of repair and restoration and dreaming and rest. The 16th fact rests gently here. Researchers studying populations in parts of the world where artificial light is minimal have found that people in these environments tend to fall asleep earlier, sleep more consistently, and show stronger and more defined circadian rhythms than people in highly illuminated urban environments. The darkness, in other words, is not something to be overcome or filled. It is something to be welcomed. It is the environment your biology was built for. And tonight, in whatever quiet and darkened space you have found for yourself, your body is receiving exactly the signal it has been waiting for since the sun went down. Your circadian rhythm is aligned. Your master clock has spoken. Your peripheral clocks, in every organ, in every cell, have received the message and are already responding. The temperature of your body is at its nightly low. Your melatonin is at its peak. Your brain is cycling through its stages of restoration with the quiet precision of something that has been doing this without fail every single night of your entire life. You do not need to do anything with this knowledge. You do not need to hold it or examine it or turn it over in your mind. You can simply let it settle around you like something warm and reassuring. The knowledge that you are perfectly timed, perfectly placed, perfectly held inside the oldest rhythm on Earth, turning slowly with the planet through the deep and restful dark. There is a molecule that has been building inside your brain since the moment you woke up this morning. You could not feel it accumulating, not exactly, though you may have noticed its effects in the way the afternoon light seemed a little heavier than the morning light, in the way your thoughts moved a little more slowly after lunch, in the way the idea of lying down and closing your eyes began to feel less like a luxury. and more like something your body was quietly, persistently requesting with increasing urgency as the hours of the day went on. This molecule is called adenosine, and it is one of the most important and least celebrated characters in the entire science of sleep. It is a byproduct of neural activity, a chemical residue left behind by the busy, energy-consuming work of your waking brain. Every hour that your neurons fire, every thought you think, every sensation you process, every decision you make leaves behind a small, additional quantity of adenosine in the spaces between your brain cells. And as it accumulates, it binds to specific receptors in the brain that progressively increase what sleep scientists call sleep pressure. The deep, biological urge to rest that grows steadily stronger the longer you remain awake. The 17th fact we carry gently into this calming narration is one that will make you think differently about the most widely consumed psychoactive substance in the world. Caffeine does not give you energy. It does not generate wakefulness or produce alertness from nothing. What it does, with remarkable chemical precision, is temporarily occupy the adenosine receptors in your brain without activating them, effectively blocking the signal that adenosine is trying to send. The sleepiness is not removed. The adenosine is still there, still accumulating, still waiting. Caffeine simply pulls a soft curtain across the window through which your brain would otherwise see it. And when the caffeine eventually clears from your system, all of that accumulated adenosine floods back to its receptors at once, which is precisely why the energy that caffeine seems to give is always, inevitably, followed by a crash. Your brain was not fooled. It was only briefly delayed. But tonight, the curtain has been drawn back. Whatever caffeine you consumed today has long since cleared from your system, and the adenosine that has been accumulating since morning is now binding freely and fully to its receptors, sending the deep, clear, unambiguous signal that your brain and your body have been waiting all day to receive. Sleep, rest, let go. The 18th fact in this deep sleep story is one of the most quietly beautiful in all of neuroscience. The clearance of adenosine during sleep is one of the primary reasons that a full night of rest feels so genuinely restorative. As you move through your sleep cycles tonight, your brain is not only consolidating memories and repairing tissues and washing itself clean with cerebrospinal fluid, it is also, with every passing hour of deep and restful sleep, steadily clearing the adenosine that has been building since morning, resetting the molecular slate, dissolving the accumulated weight of the day's wakefulness, so that when you open your eyes tomorrow, the world will feel lighter and cleaner, and more possible than it did when you closed them tonight. The 19th fact rests softly alongside it. Sleep pressure and circadian rhythm work together in a finely balanced system that researchers call the two-process model of sleep regulation. Process 1 is the adenosine buildup, the sleep pressure that rises through the day and is released through the night. Process 2 is the circadian rhythm, the internal clock that gates your alertness and your sleepiness in a 24-hour wave during the day. Even as adenosine accumulates, your circadian rhythm keeps you alert and functional, counteracting the growing sleep pressure with its own opposing signal. Then, as evening comes and the circadian signal begins to withdraw, the sleep pressure is finally free to express itself fully. And the result is exactly the feeling you are experiencing right now. That soft, irresistible, whole body heaviness, that quieting of thought, that gentle, growing distance from the waking world that no amount of willpower can truly hold back when the time has come. And the time has come. The adenosine in your brain is speaking clearly and completely now. Your circadian clock has stepped aside and let the night take over. Every system in your body is aligned and pointing in the same direction. Inward, downward, deeper into the warm and wordless rest that is already surrounding you on all sides. You do not need to chase sleep tonight. You do not need to try to make it happen or worry about whether it is coming. It is already here. It has been here since the moment you lay down, and all that beautiful, accumulated molecular weight of the day is gently, finally, completely letting go. There is a network of regions in your brain that becomes most active not when you are focused on a task, not when you are solving a problem or reading a page or following a conversation, but when you are doing none of those things at all, when your attention drifts inward, when your mind wanders, when you lie quietly in the dark and let your thoughts move without direction or destination. Scientists call it the default mode network, and it is one of the most fascinating and most recently understood systems in all of neuroscience. During waking life, it activates in the spaces between tasks, in the gentle, unfocused moments of daydreaming and mind wandering that your brain naturally gravitates toward whenever the demands of the external world briefly release their hold. But during REM sleep, during the deep and vivid hours of dreaming, the default mode network does not simply activate. It lights up with an intensity and a complexity that researchers are still working to fully understand, weaving together memory and emotion and imagination into the strange, luminous, privately logical world of the dream. The 20th fact we carry softly into this relaxing story is this: the reason most dreams are forgotten almost immediately upon waking is not because they are unimportant, but because the hippocampus, the brain structure most responsible for encoding new memories into long-term storage, is significantly less active during REM sleep than it is during waking life. Dreams are experienced with extraordinary vividness in the moment of dreaming, but without the hippocampus fully engaged to record them, they dissolve almost instantly upon the return to waking consciousness, fading like watercolors left in the rain, leaving behind only a feeling, a color, a fragment of something that was once whole and complete and utterly real. The 21st fact in this deep sleep story belongs to one of the most extraordinary phenomena in all of sleep science: lucid dreaming. A lucid dream is one in which the dreamer becomes aware, while still inside the dream, that they are dreaming. The world of the dream remains fully present and sensory and real. But a quiet part of the dreaming mind recognizes the nature of what it is experiencing and steps, gently and partially, into a state of conscious awareness within the dream. Researchers studying lucid dreamers in sleep laboratories have verified this phenomenon with remarkable precision. Lucid dreamers trained to perform specific eye movements as a signal when they became lucid within a dream were observed doing exactly that, their eyes moving in pre-agreed patterns, while every other measure confirmed they were fully, genuinely asleep. It is one of the only moments in all of sleep science where a sleeping brain and a waking researcher have been able, however briefly, to communicate directly across the boundary of consciousness. The 22nd fact rests tenderly here. Children dream more than adults. Infants, in the early weeks and months of life, spend an extraordinary proportion of their total sleep time in REM sleep, sometimes more than 50% of every sleep period. Researchers believe this is connected to the staggering rate of neural development happening in the infant brain, the formation of new connections, the pruning of unused pathways, the gradual construction of the vast and intricate architecture of a developing mind. The dreaming brain in those earliest months of life may be less about processing the experiences of the day and more about building the very structures that will one day make experience itself possible. Every dream you have ever had began in a brain that was once doing exactly this, building itself in the dark, in the quiet, in the deep and unknowing rest of infancy. The 23rd fact in this calming narration is one that connects the science of dreaming to the history of human creativity in the most direct and personal way. Some of the most celebrated creative breakthroughs in human history have been attributed, by those who experienced them, to the imagery and inspiration of dreams. Chemists, writers, musicians, mathematicians, and inventors have all described moments in which a solution or an image or a melody that had eluded them during all their waking efforts arrived fully formed in a dream, or in the half-waking state at the edge of sleep, as though the dreaming brain had been working on the problem quietly and independently all along. Your dreaming mind tonight is not idle. It is not simply replaying the day or generating random noise. It is making connections that your waking mind, with all its logic and linear thinking, would never quite reach on its own. It is exploring the edges of what you know and what you feel and what you imagine in a language older than words, in a theater lit by nothing but the quiet electricity of your own extraordinary sleeping brain. And all of this is happening right now, in the warm and perfect darkness, as you drift deeper into the most natural and most ancient kind of rest. There's a quiet miracle that happens while you sleep, one so reliable and so well documented that scientists who study it still find themselves speaking about it with something close to wonder. You go to bed having struggled with something, a new skill, a difficult concept, a piece of information that refused to settle into place, no matter how many times you turned it over in your waking mind. And then you sleep, and somewhere in the long, dark, unhurried hours between closing your eyes and opening them again, something shifts. The thing that was difficult becomes a little easier. The thing that was tangled becomes a little clearer. The thing that was just beyond your reach is, somehow, in the morning, exactly where your hand can find it. This is not magic, though it feels like it. This is the brain doing one of the most sophisticated and most important things it knows how to do: consolidating learning during sleep. The 24th fact we carry gently into this relaxing story is this: sleep plays a different and irreplaceable role in memory formation, depending on the type of learning involved. Declarative memories, the kind that carry facts and events and conscious knowledge, rely heavily on the hippocampus and are consolidated primarily during slow wave deep sleep, in those long delta wave cycles that dominate the early part of the night. Procedural memories, the kind that carry physical skills and habitual sequences: how to ride a bicycle, how to play a chord on a guitar, how to type without looking at the keys, are consolidated through a different mechanism, one that involves the motor cortex and the cerebellum, and that appears to depend more on the lighter stages of sleep, including stage 2 and its quietly flickering sleep spindles. The brain, in other words, has more than one filing system, and it uses the different stages and depths of the night to sort and store different kinds of knowledge into different kinds of drawers, each one carefully organized and gently secured while you lie still and breathe and dream. The 25th fact in this deep sleep story is one of the most practically remarkable in all of neuroscience. Researchers studying students who learned new material and then either slept normally or stayed awake for the following night found that those who slept retained the material significantly better, not just slightly better, but measurably, substantially, reproducibly better than those who did not. Sleep after learning is not a passive recovery period. It is an active processing period during which the brain replays the patterns of neural activity that occurred during learning, strengthening the connections between neurons that encode the new information, weaving the new knowledge more deeply and durably into the existing fabric of what is already known. The 26th fact rests here with particular gentleness. Targeted memory reactivation studies have shown that memories can be selectively strengthened during sleep by gently reintroducing cues associated with the original learning experience. In laboratory settings, participants who learned information paired with specific sounds and then had those same sounds played softly during slow wave sleep later recalled that information more accurately than information learned without the associated sound cue. The sleeping brain, it turns out, is not closed to the world. It is simply filtering it, attending to what is meaningful, and quietly, selectively, drawing certain memories forward for deeper processing, while letting others rest undisturbed. The 27th fact in this calming narration belongs to the emotional dimension of sleep and learning together. Sleep appears to play a critical role in the development and maintenance of emotional intelligence. People who are consistently well rested show greater capacity for empathy, more accurate reading of social and emotional cues, and more nuanced and flexible responses to interpersonal challenges than people who are chronically sleep deprived. The rested brain is not only sharper in its thinking, it is warmer in its feeling. It is more open, more patient, more genuinely present with the people and the world around it. And this capacity, this emotional richness that comes from deep and restorative sleep, is not a luxury or an accident. It is one of the most fundamental gifts that a good night of rest gives back to the person who receives it. Tonight, every chapter of learning your brain is quietly revisiting. Every memory it is gently strengthening. Every emotional impression it is carefully processing and integrating. All of it is being done on your behalf, without any effort or intention required from you. Your only task in all of this beautiful, complex, astonishingly intelligent biological work is to remain exactly as you are right now, still and warm and breathing slowly and resting deeply in the long and generous dark. You are not alone in this. That is perhaps the most quietly comforting thought that the science of sleep has to offer, the knowledge that right now, in this very moment, as you lie still and breathe slowly and let the darkness hold you, you are participating in something that stretches far beyond the boundaries of your own body, your own bed, your own quiet room, all across this planet, in every ocean and forest and grassland and sky. Other creatures are also resting, also cycling through their own versions of the ancient, regenerative rhythm that is carrying you deeper into the night right now. Sleep, in its many forms and variations, is one of the most universal behaviors in all of the animal kingdom, and the ways in which different species have adapted it to their particular lives and environments are among the most soothing and most wonder-filled facts in all of biological science. The 28th fact we carry softly into this relaxing story is one we touched upon gently at the very beginning of this journey. Dolphins and certain other cetaceans sleep with only one hemisphere of the brain at a time. The left side rests while the right side remains gently, minimally awake, and then they switch. This remarkable adaptation, called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, allows dolphins to continue swimming, continue surfacing for breath, and continue maintaining a soft awareness of their surroundings, even while half of their brain is genuinely, measurably asleep. You can picture them now, if you like, moving slowly through dark water, one eye open and one eye closed, half dreaming and half watching, carried forward by the quiet rhythm of their own bodies through the soft and lightless deep. The 29th fact in this deep sleep story belongs to birds, many of which have developed the same unihemispheric sleep ability as dolphins. For similarly practical reasons, migratory birds, during the extraordinary long-distance flights that carry them across continents and oceans, are believed to sleep on the wing, catching brief periods of unihemispheric rest while their bodies continue the muscular, navigational work of flight. Researchers tracking the brain activity of certain bird species during migration have found evidence of sleep occurring mid-flight. The resting hemisphere cycling through its slow waves, while the bird continues moving through the air thousands of feet above the earth. The sky itself, in those long migratory nights, is filled with birds that are simultaneously flying and dreaming. A thought so quietly beautiful that it deserves to rest in the mind for a moment before drifting on. The 30th fact we carry tenderly here is about a creature that sleeps in a way that seems almost impossibly deep by human standards. The brown bat, which can spend up to 20 hours of every day in sleep or torpor, resting in dark caves and hollow trees in dense, warm clusters, their small bodies slowed almost to stillness, their metabolisms reduced to a fraction of their waking rate. For a bat, most of life is rest. The waking hours, those few sharp, echolocating hours of hunting through the summer night, are the exception rather than the rule. And in those long, suspended hours of sleep, the bat's body is doing what bodies do in rest: conserving, repairing, maintaining, preparing for the brief but essential hours of wakefulness that will come again when the darkness is just right. The 31st fact in this calming narration is one of the most endearing in all of sleep science. Otters, when they sleep on the surface of the water, hold hands. They float on their backs in calm rivers and coastal waters, their small, dense bodies buoyant and still, and they reach out to the otter beside them and loosely, gently grasp each other's paws so that the current does not carry them apart while they sleep. Researchers call these groups rafts, and they have been observed in both river otters and sea otters, sometimes involving just two animals, and sometimes involving groups of many dozens, all floating together in the quiet water, connected by the simplest and most instinctive gesture of closeness. There is something in that image, those small, sleeping, hand-holding creatures drifting on still water, that speaks to something very old and very true about the nature of rest. That it is safest when it is shared, that the deepest sleep comes most easily when something warm is nearby. You may have your own version of that tonight: a person sleeping close, a pet curled at the foot of the bed, or simply the familiar warmth of a space that is entirely and completely yours. Whatever it is, let it be the last thing your waking mind rests upon before the current carries you the rest of the way. You are held. You are warm. You are part of the oldest, widest, most generous rest in all of nature. There is a conversation happening inside you right now that requires no words and no conscious participation from you whatsoever. It is being conducted in the language of proteins and signals and cellular responses, in the quiet biological vocabulary of the immune system. And it is one of the most important conversations your body has every single night. Sleep and the immune system are not simply friendly neighbors living alongside each other in the same body. They are deeply, intricately, reciprocally connected, each one influencing and supporting the other in ways that scientists have been uncovering with increasing clarity and increasing astonishment over the past several decades. And what they have found is this: the darkness, the stillness, the slow and cycling depth of a full night of rest is not merely good for your immune system. It is, in a very real and measurable biological sense, one of the primary conditions under which your immune system does its most essential and most powerful work. The 32nd fact we carry gently into this calming narration is one that connects the science of sleep directly to the body's first line of defense. During sleep, and particularly during the deep, slow-wave stages of the early night, the body significantly increases its production of cytokines. These are small signaling proteins that coordinate the immune response, directing immune cells towards sites of infection or inflammation, regulating the intensity and duration of the body's defensive reactions. and communicating between the different branches of the immune system with a precision and a complexity that researchers are still working to fully map. Some cytokines are specifically produced in greater quantities during sleep and are barely produced at all during waking hours, as though the immune system has learned over millions of years of evolution that the quiet of the night is the optimal time for this particular kind of work. The 33rd fact in this deep sleep story is one that most people have experienced directly without ever knowing the science behind it. When you are ill, you feel an almost irresistible urge to sleep. This is not weakness, and it is not simply the body being overwhelmed. It is the immune system actively requesting more of the resource it needs most. The same cytokines that coordinate the immune response also act on the brain to increase sleep drive, to make the pull toward rest feel stronger and more insistent than usual. Because the immune system has learned that sleep is when it can work most effectively and most freely. Your body, in those moments of illness when all you want to do is close your eyes, is not giving up. It is making a precise and intelligent biological request. The 34th fact rests here with particular clarity. Studies examining the relationship between sleep duration and immune response to vaccination have found that people who sleep fewer than 6 hours in the days following vaccination produce significantly fewer antibodies than those who sleep 7 hours or more. The immune system's ability to learn, to remember a pathogen, and build a targeted defense against it appears to depend in part on the same sleep-dependent consolidation processes that strengthen memory in the brain. The body learns while it sleeps in more ways than one, and the lessons it learns in the dark are among the most durable and most protective it will ever carry. The 35th fact in this relaxing story is one of the most quietly extraordinary in all of sleep immunology. Natural killer cells, a specialized type of immune cell whose role is to identify and destroy abnormal cells before they can cause harm, are significantly more active and more numerous in the bloodstream after a full night of restorative sleep than after a shortened or disrupted one. The sleeping body is not passive. It is not simply waiting for morning. It is actively patrolling, actively maintaining, actively defending the integrity of every system and every tissue with a thoroughness and a dedication that the busy, wakeful body simply cannot match. Right now, as you breathe slowly and lie still in the warm dark, your immune system is doing exactly this. It is reading the signals of the night. It is producing its cytokines and directing its cells, and quietly, methodically tending to every corner of the body that the day left behind. You do not need to think about it, or guide it, or assist it in any way. It knows what to do. It has always known what to do, and the single most generous thing you can offer it, the one thing that allows it to do its work most completely and most freely, is the very thing you are already doing right now, lying still, breathing slowly, and resting deeply in the long, restorative, immune-strengthening, endlessly healing silence of the night. There is a historical mystery hidden inside the experience of sleep, one that went largely unnoticed for centuries, simply because nobody thought to look for it. It was hiding in plain sight, in the pages of old diaries and court records and medical texts, in the quiet, handwritten observations of people living in the centuries before electric light changed the rhythm of the human night forever. A historian named Roger Eckerj spent more than a decade combing through these documents, gathering references from across cultures and centuries. And what he found quietly rewrote everything that modern sleep science had assumed about the most natural and most ancient form of human slumber. His discovery was this: for most of human history, people did not sleep in one long, unbroken block through the night. They slept in two separate periods, divided by an hour or so of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the dark. The 36th fact we carry softly into this relaxing story is the revelation of segmented sleep itself. Historical records from medieval Europe, from early colonial America, from accounts across many cultures, describe a first sleep and a second sleep as completely ordinary, completely unremarkable features of the nightly experience. People would go to bed not long after dark, sleep for 3 or 4 hours, wake naturally around midnight, lie quietly or rise briefly for an hour or two, and then return to a second sleep that lasted until morning. The waking period between the two sleeps was not experienced as insomnia or as a problem to be solved. It was simply part of the night, a quiet, contemplative interval that many people used for prayer, for gentle conversation, for reading by candlelight, or for simply lying in the warm dark and allowing the mind to drift through its own unhurried thoughts. The 37th fact in this deep sleep story is one that connects our ancient sleep patterns to the biology we have already explored together. The period between first and second sleep appears to have corresponded naturally with a brief rise in prolactin, a hormone associated with a state of calm, drowsy, almost meditative wakefulness, distinctly different from the alert, goal-directed wakefulness of the daytime. People who woke in this natural midnight interval often described feeling unusually peaceful, unusually open, unusually still, not groggy or disturbed, but resting in a kind of luminous, quiet awareness that was neither fully asleep nor fully awake. It sounds described this way, very much like the hypnagogic threshold we visited together in Chapter 3. That soft, borderless territory where the rules of waking thought loosen and the mind becomes fluid and associative, and gently, beautifully strange. The 38th fact rests here with a particular warmth. The disappearance of segmented sleep from common human experience happened remarkably quickly and remarkably recently, driven almost entirely by the spread of artificial lighting across the industrialized world in the 19th century, as gas lamps and then electric lights extended the usable hours of the evening. People began staying awake longer before bed, compressing the night, and the natural biological rhythm of two sleeps gradually merged into one. Historian Eckerj suggests that much of what modern medicine diagnoses as sleep maintenance insomnia, the frustrating experience of waking in the middle of the night and being unable to return to sleep, may in fact be the ancient biological rhythm of segmented sleep reasserting itself in bodies that were never truly designed for the consolidated single sleep that modern life demands. If you have ever woken in the deep middle of the night and lain quietly in the dark, thoughts moving softly without urgency, the room still, and the world outside completely hushed, then you have touched that ancient interval. You have rested briefly in the same midnight space that your ancestors inhabited for thousands of years. The gentle, prolactin-bathed, candle-lit hour between first sleep and second sleep, when the night was deepest and the mind was at its most quiet and its most free. Tonight, whether you sleep in one long continuous arc, or whether you surface briefly at some soft and dark midpoint before descending again, your body is doing what it has always known how to do. It is following a rhythm older than electricity, older than industry, older than every clock ever built. It is sleeping the way human beings slept beside firelight, beneath open stars, in the deep and unhurried dark of a world that had not yet learned to rush. And in that ancient rhythm, in that patient and time-tested relationship between the human body and the night, there is nothing to fix and nothing to fear. Only the long, warm, perfectly natural rest that is already, quietly, completely yours. There is an organ in your chest that has not stopped working since before you were born. It began beating somewhere around the 4th week of your existence, in the very earliest days of your formation, when you were not yet recognizable as the person you would become. And it has continued without a single deliberate instruction from you, through every hour of every day and every night of your entire life. It beats approximately 100,000 times in a single day. It moves roughly 2,000 gallons of blood through your body every 24 hours. And yet, of all the things this extraordinary organ does in the course of a lifetime, some of its most important and most protective work happens not during the exertion of the day, but in the deep and quiet hours of the night, when you are lying exactly as you are lying right now, still and warm and breathing slowly and surrendered completely to sleep. The 39th fact we carry gently into this calming narration is one of the most fundamental in all of cardiovascular science. During sleep, and particularly during the slow wave deep sleep stages of the early night, your heart rate slows measurably and significantly. Your blood pressure drops. The walls of your blood vessels, which have been under the steady pressure of full waking circulation all day long, experience a genuine and restorative period of reduced demand. Researchers call this nocturnal dipping, and it is considered one of the most important protective mechanisms the cardiovascular system possesses. People whose blood pressure dips normally during sleep show significantly lower rates of cardiovascular events than those whose blood pressure remains elevated through the night. The sleeping hours, in this sense, are not simply a pause in the cardiovascular story. They are one of its most essential and most healing chapters. The 40th fact in this deep sleep story speaks to the relationship between sleep and one of the most pervasive cardiovascular conditions in the modern world, hypertension, or chronically elevated blood pressure. Studies examining the sleep patterns of large populations have found consistent and reproducible associations between short sleep duration, poor sleep quality, and elevated daytime blood pressure. The mechanism appears to involve multiple pathways. The sympathetic nervous system, which drives the body's alert and active responses, remains more tonically elevated in people who are chronically sleep-deprived, keeping blood pressure higher across the full 24 hours. The parasympathetic nervous system, which governs the body's rest and recovery responses, and which is most active during deep sleep, does not receive adequate time to do its gentle, pressure-lowering, heart rate-slowing work. When sleep is shortened or fragmented, the 41st fact rests here with particular quiet power. The hours between roughly 2 and 6 in the morning, which correspond in most people to the later REM-dominated sleep cycles, are associated with a natural and gradual rise in cortisol and other activating hormones that begin preparing the cardiovascular system for the return to waking. This is a beautifully timed process, perfectly calibrated to the circadian rhythm, gently lifting blood pressure and heart rate back toward their daytime levels in a slow, gradual arc, rather than the sudden, jarring transition that an abrupt awakening creates. The sleeping body, even in its transition back toward wakefulness, moves with a kind of unhurried grace, a biological patience that protects the heart even in the act of ending its rest. The 42nd fact in this relaxing story is one that connects the science of sleep to the health of the blood vessels themselves. During sleep, the body increases its production of nitric oxide, a molecule that causes the smooth muscle in blood vessel walls to relax and expand. This vasodilation, this gentle widening of the vessels, reduces the resistance against which the heart must pump and allows blood to flow with greater ease and greater efficiency through the entire circulatory network. It is as though the body, in the dark and quiet of the night, gently loosens everything that the day had tightened: the vessels, the pressure, the rate, the demand, and gives the heart the most generous gift it ever receives, which is simply the freedom for a few long and restorative hours to work a little less hard. Your heart right now is beating more slowly than it has beaten since this morning. The pressure in your vessels is at its nightly low. The parasympathetic nervous system is holding everything in its quiet, steady, deeply restoring hands. And somewhere in your chest, that organ that has never once asked for your attention or your gratitude is receiving, in the only language it has ever known, the care that it has always deserved, the deep, unhurried, completely effortless care of a body that is finally, fully, and completely at rest. There is an expression that has been passed down through generations in nearly every culture that has ever existed: the idea of beauty sleep. It sounds, at first, like a charming but unscientific piece of folklore, the kind of gentle wisdom that grandmothers offer and scientists politely set aside. But the truth, as sleep science has revealed with increasing precision and increasing wonder over the past several decades, is that the expression is not folklore at all. It is biology. The skin, the body's largest organ, the remarkable living barrier that covers and protects every other system you carry, undergoes a profound and measurable transformation during the night that has nothing to do with vanity and everything to do with the deep, cellular, regenerative intelligence of a body that knows exactly how to care for itself when it is finally given the quiet and the darkness it needs. The 43rd fact we carry softly into this relaxing story is this: the rate of cell division in the skin increases significantly during sleep, particularly during the slow-wave deep sleep stages of the early night. Skin cells replicate and renew themselves at roughly twice the rate during sleep as they do during the waking hours, a rhythm that is governed, like so many of the body's restorative processes, by the same circadian clock that coordinates your sleep-wake cycle. The skin, in other words, has its own version of the night shift, a quiet, industrious, completely invisible workforce of dividing and renewing cells that clocks in the moment the lights go down and works without interruption through the darkest hours, replacing and restoring the cellular fabric of the body's outermost layer with a thoroughness and a dedication that the busy metabolic environment of the daytime simply cannot match. The 44th fact in this deep sleep story is one that connects the science of sleep directly to the structural integrity of the skin itself. Collagen, the fibrous protein that gives skin its firmness, its elasticity, and its capacity to return to its original shape after being stretched or compressed, is produced in significantly greater quantities during sleep than during wakefulness. Collagen synthesis is one of the body's most energetically demanding repair processes, and it appears to be prioritized during sleep because the metabolic resources that are redirected away from the brain's active thinking and away from the muscles' waking exertions become available in the quiet of the night for exactly this kind of deep structural maintenance. The 45th fact rests gently here. Growth hormone, whose release during slow-wave sleep we explored together in Chapter 4, plays a direct and significant role in skin repair. Among its many functions, growth hormone stimulates the production of new skin cells, promotes wound healing, and supports the maintenance of the skin's deeper structural layers. Every pulse of growth hormone released during those long, slow delta wave cycles of the early night is, among its many other gifts, a quiet act of restoration directed at the surface of your body, the part of you that faces the world each day and absorbs everything the world asks of it. The 46th fact in this calming narration is one that most people have observed directly without knowing its biological name. Transepidermal water loss, the rate at which moisture evaporates from the skin's surface, decreases during the night as the skin's barrier function strengthens and the body's temperature regulation shifts into its nocturnal mode. This is why skin feels softer and more hydrated in the morning after a full night of rest than it does after a shortened or disrupted night. The barrier has had time to do its work, to seal and restore and maintain the delicate balance of moisture that keeps the skin supple and resilient and genuinely, measurably alive. Your skin tonight is doing all of this. In the dark and the quiet and the warmth, it is dividing and renewing and producing collagen and sealing its own barrier and receiving the gifts of growth hormone with a patience and a thoroughness that asks nothing of you except the very thing you are already giving it: rest, stillness, the long and generous dark. There is something deeply reassuring about this, the knowledge that while you lie here, breathing slowly, thoughts dissolving, the weight of the day completely released, the surface of your body is quietly, carefully tending to itself, that the largest organ you carry is doing its most important work in the same hours that feel, from the inside, like the emptiest and most formless of the night. Nothing is empty here. Everything is happening, all of it gently, all of it purposefully, all of it in the service of the body that carries you through every day. And that deserves, more than anything else, exactly this: the deep, unhurried, completely restorative peace of a night spent wholly and beautifully at rest. There is a structure deep within the brain, roughly the size and shape of a small almond, that sits at the very center of the brain's emotional life. It processes threat and fear and intensity. It sounds the alarm when the world feels dangerous. It colors experience with urgency and weight and feeling. It is called the amygdala, and during the waking hours, it is one of the most active and most influential structures in the entire brain, reading every face, every tone of voice, every ambiguous situation for signs of something that might require a strong emotional response. It is, in the most fundamental sense, the part of your brain that cares most deeply and most immediately about everything that happens to you, and one of the most important things that a full night of sleep does, one of the most generous and most restorative gifts that the dark and quiet hours give back to the person who rests inside them, is that it resets the amygdala, returning it from the heightened, reactive, hair-trigger sensitivity that accumulates through a long and demanding day back to its calm, balanced, appropriately responsive baseline. The 47th fact we carry gently into this calming narration is one of the most clinically significant in all of sleep neuroscience. Studies using brain imaging technology have shown that after a night of total sleep deprivation, the amygdala becomes up to 60% more reactive to emotionally negative stimuli than it is in the well-rested brain, 60%. The sleep-deprived brain does not simply feel a little more emotional or a little more sensitive. It is neurologically, measurably, structurally closer to the edge, more easily tipped into anger, more readily flooded by anxiety, more vulnerable to the kind of overwhelming emotional response that feels, from the inside, completely disproportionate to whatever actually caused it. The 48th fact in this deep sleep story is one that illuminates exactly why this happens. In the well-rested brain, the amygdala operates in close communication with the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for rational evaluation, perspective-taking, and the kind of measured, thoughtful response that allows a person to feel a strong emotion without being completely governed by it. Sleep deprivation weakens the functional connection between these two regions, effectively reducing the prefrontal cortex's ability to modulate and regulate the amygdala's responses. The result is a brain in which the emotional accelerator has been pressed down and the rational brake has been quietly, invisibly disconnected. The 49th fact rests here with particular warmth. REM sleep appears to play a specific and crucial role in this nightly emotional reset during REM sleep, as we explored together in Chapter 5. The brain revisits emotionally significant memories in an environment of reduced norepinephrine, the stress neurochemical, gently processing and integrating difficult experiences, and returning the emotional landscape of the mind to something more level, more spacious, more capable of meeting the next day with genuine equanimity. The 50th fact in this relaxing story is one that connects the science of sleep directly to the experience of resilience. The capacity to absorb difficulty, to bend without breaking, to return to a functional and grounded state after stress or challenge or loss. Researchers studying the relationship between sleep quality and psychological resilience have found consistent and reproducible evidence that people who sleep well not only recover more quickly from stressful events, but also show lower baseline levels of perceived stress, greater flexibility in their emotional responses, and a significantly more stable and reliable sense of their own well-being across time. Sleep does not remove the difficulties of a life. It does not erase the hard things or make the complicated things simple. What it does, night after night, with quiet and unfailing consistency, is return the brain to its most capable, most compassionate, most genuinely human state. The state from which everything else, every connection, and every creative act, and every moment of patience, and every gesture of kindness becomes possible. Right now, in the deep and restorative silence of this night, your amygdala is quieting. Your prefrontal cortex is rebuilding its calm and steady relationship with the emotional centers of your brain. The stress of yesterday is being gently, chemically dissolved. And the person who will open their eyes tomorrow morning will be, in every neurological sense that matters, more patient, more open, more resilient, and more fully themselves than the person who closed them tonight. You are not simply resting. You are being restored in the deepest and most complete sense of that word to everything that you are when you are at your very best. There is a particular kind of thinking that the waking brain almost never manages entirely on its own. It is the thinking that happens at the edges of things, at the junction between two ideas that have never met before, between a memory and a feeling, between a problem that has resisted every logical approach and a solution that arrives not through effort, but through surrender. It is the kind of thinking that cannot be forced or scheduled or willed into being by concentration alone. It requires something that the busy, goal-directed, task-managing waking mind finds genuinely difficult to provide. The freedom to wander without destination, to make connections without evaluating them, to move through the vast interior landscape of everything a mind contains without the constant, narrowing pressure of purpose. And that freedom, that extraordinary creative liberty, is something that the sleeping brain possesses in greater abundance than the waking brain will ever know. The 51st fact we carry softly into this relaxing story is one that sits at the beautiful intersection of neuroscience and human history. The chemist Auguste Kekulé, working in the 19th century on the structural problem of the benzene molecule, a problem that had resisted solution through years of conscious effort, fell into a half-sleep before a fire one evening and saw, in the hypnagogic imagery of that drowsing state, a snake seizing its own tail. He woke with the insight that the benzene molecule was not a chain, but a ring, a closed, circular structure. And the entire field of organic chemistry shifted on the axis of that dream-born revelation. The 50-second fact in this deep sleep story belongs to a musician whose name is known in every corner of the world. Paul McCartney has described waking one morning with the complete melody of the song Yesterday fully formed in his mind, so vivid and so complete that he initially assumed he must have heard it somewhere before, and spent days trying to verify that it was not already someone else's composition. It was not. It had arrived, whole and perfect, from the sleeping mind, delivered without effort or intention through the mysterious generative intelligence of a brain that had been quietly, freely, brilliantly working in the dark. The 53rd fact rests here with particular wonder. The state between waking and sleeping, the hypnagogic threshold we visited together in Chapter 3, was deliberately cultivated as a creative tool by the surrealist artist Salvador Dali, who would sit in a chair holding a key above a metal plate and allow himself to drift toward sleep. The moment he crossed the threshold into genuine sleep, his hand would relax, the key would fall, the clatter of metal on metal would wake him, and he would immediately record whatever imagery had been present in his hypnagogic state. The strange, fluid, rule-defying images that populated the borderland of his consciousness, and translate them directly into the paintings that would make him one of the most celebrated artists of the 20th century. The 54th fact in this calming narration is the scientific principle that underlies all of these remarkable stories. Researchers studying the relationship between sleep and creative problem-solving have identified a phenomenon they call remote associative thinking, the capacity to draw connections between concepts that are semantically distant from each other, that do not share obvious logical pathways, but that turn out, when brought together, to illuminate something that neither could reveal alone. REM sleep, with its hyper-associative neural activity and its freedom from the evaluative filtering of the prefrontal cortex, appears to be the brain state most conducive to exactly this kind of thinking. The dreaming brain is not constrained by the rules of what is logical or expected or previously known to work. It moves freely through the entire architecture of everything you have ever learned and felt and imagined, drawing lines between distant points, building bridges between islands of knowledge that the waking mind would never have thought to connect. And so tonight, in the long and generous hours still ahead, your sleeping mind is doing this. It is wandering freely through the landscape of your own extraordinary inner life, making connections that no deliberate thought could reach, preparing insights and images and ideas that may not be consciously available to you until tomorrow or next week or some quiet morning months from now, when something suddenly and inexplicably makes sense in a way it never did before. You may never know exactly what your sleeping brain created tonight, but it is creating right now in the dark and the warmth and the perfect, undisturbed silence of this deep, and restful night, something that belongs entirely and beautifully to you. Sleep changes. It does not stay the same across the arc of a human life, any more than a river stays the same from its mountain source to its wide and gentle delta. It shifts and deepens and lightens and shifts again, responding to the changing biology of the body that carries it, adapting to the different developmental tasks that each stage of life asks the sleeping brain to accomplish. And when you look at sleep across the full span of a human lifetime, from the first hours of a newborn's existence all the way through the long, quiet nights of old age, what you find is not a story of decline or loss, but a story of extraordinary, intelligent, beautifully purposeful adaptation, a story that your own body has been living since the very first night of your life, adjusting and refining your relationship with the dark in ways that were always perfectly matched to exactly what you needed at exactly the time you needed it. The 55th fact we carry gently into this calming narration is one that begins at the very beginning. A newborn infant sleeps between 14 and 17 hours in every 24-hour period, distributed across multiple short cycles with no clear distinction between night and day. The newborn brain has not yet synchronized to the external light-dark cycle because the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that tiny master clock, is not fully developed at birth and requires several weeks of exposure to light and darkness, to the rhythmic cues of feeding and holding, and the sound of familiar voices, before it begins to establish the circadian alignment that will eventually organize sleep into its familiar nighttime pattern. Every parent who has ever walked a sleepless midnight floor with a newborn has been, without knowing it, participating in the biological process of helping a brand new circadian clock find its rhythm. The 56th fact in this deep sleep story belongs to childhood. Between the ages of roughly 3 and 5, most children naturally relinquish the afternoon nap that has been a staple of their daily rest. As the consolidating circadian rhythm grows strong enough to sustain wakefulness across the full arc of the day, but the total sleep need remains high throughout childhood, between 9 and 12 hours for school-aged children, because the developing brain is still performing the extraordinary, energy-intensive work of building and pruning and refining the billions of neural connections that will form the architecture of the adult mind. Deep, slow-wave sleep is proportionally greater in children than in adults, reflecting the scale and the urgency of this developmental construction. And the growth hormone released during those long delta wave cycles is doing double duty, building the body upward and outward, even as it helps the brain wire itself into its emerging complexity. The 57th fact rests here with a particular tenderness for anyone who has ever been or loved a teenager. Adolescence brings a genuine, biologically driven shift in the circadian rhythm known as sleep phase delay. The timing of melatonin release shifts later in adolescence, pushing the natural inclination to fall asleep and to wake up forward by 1 to 3 hours compared to childhood or adulthood. A teenager who cannot fall asleep before midnight and struggles desperately to wake at 7 in the morning is not being lazy or defiant. Their biology has genuinely, temporarily reset its clock, and asking them to sleep and wake on an adult schedule is, in the most literal neurological sense, asking them to fight their own circadian rhythm every single day. The 58th fact in this relaxing story speaks to the sleep of midlife and beyond. As the decades pass, the proportion of slow-wave deep sleep gradually decreases, and sleep becomes somewhat lighter and somewhat more fragmented, with more frequent brief awakenings through the night. This shift is real, and it is biological, driven in part by changes in the brain structures that generate slow-wave activity, and in part by the reduced amplitude of the circadian signal. But the need for sleep does not diminish with age. The restorative processes that sleep performs, the immune support, the emotional regulation, the cardiovascular protection, the memory consolidation, remain as essential and as active in the sleeping body at 70 as they were at 30. The body simply asks for its rest in a slightly different way, spread perhaps more gently across the hours, touched more lightly by the hand of the night. And here, in this warm and quiet darkness, whatever age you carry, whatever stage of the river you are traveling, your body is doing what it has always known how to do. It is resting in exactly the way that this particular night, this particular biology, this particular moment in the long and remarkable story of your life requires. Nothing more and nothing less than exactly, perfectly, completely enough. And so we arrive here, gently and without hurry, at the last quiet shore of this long and wonder-filled night. You have traveled a great distance since you first closed your eyes, and let this story take you through the chemistry of melatonin and the architecture of sleep cycles, through the dreaming brain and the resting heart, through the immune system's silent nightly labor, and the skin's patient regeneration, through the emotional reset of a sleeping mind, and the creative wandering of a brain set free in the dark. 100 facts about the science of sleep, woven one by one into the long, slow, soothing fabric of this night, each one a thread in the same extraordinary tapestry. The story of what your body and your brain have been doing, faithfully and intelligently, and with breathtaking biological precision, every single night of your entire life. And now, as the deepest hours of the night settle fully and completely around you, there is nothing left to learn and nothing left to follow. There is only this: the warmth beneath you, the darkness around you, the slow and easy rhythm of your own breathing, and the vast, unhurried, perfectly silent peace of a body that has done everything it needed to do tonight, and is now resting in the fullest and most complete sense of that word. The 59th fact we carry into this final, fading chapter is perhaps the most quietly beautiful of all. The last dreams of the early morning, those long, elaborate, emotionally rich journeys that unfold in the extended REM periods of the final sleep cycles, are the ones most likely to carry the residue of the night's deepest processing, the insights quietly assembled in the dark, the emotional integrations completed through the hours, the creative connections drawn between distant points in the landscape of the mind. All of them are most fully realized in these last, gentle, luminous dreams that come just before the natural return of waking. if you dream tonight in these final hours, whatever you find there was made for you by the most extraordinary biological instrument in the known universe, your own sleeping brain working on your behalf in the dark, with a care and a creativity and an intelligence that asks for nothing in return except exactly what you have already given it tonight. The 60th fact, the last fact, the one we carry most softly of all into the fading quiet of this sleep story, is simply this: sleep is not the absence of living. It is one of the most alive things a human being ever does. Every slow breath you are taking right now is part of a process of such complexity and such elegance and such ancient, accumulated wisdom that no technology ever built has come close to replicating it. The darkness you are resting in is not empty. It is full of the quiet electrical music of a dreaming brain, full of the patient chemical work of a healing body, full of the slow and cycling rhythm of a biological clock that turns with the planet itself, full of everything that you are when the noise of the world has finally, completely, and mercifully stepped aside. You do not need to hold onto any of the words that have passed through this night. You do not need to remember the names of molecules or the stages of cycles or the structures deep within the brain. All of it has already done its work simply by being here, simply by giving your mind something soft and slow and full of quiet wonder to rest against as the hours deepened and the wakefulness dissolved. Let it all go now. Let the facts drift away like the last few lights on a distant shore seen from a ship that is moving slowly, gently, irresistibly out to sea. Let the words become sounds, and let the sounds become silence, and let the silence become the warm, wide, completely undemanding dark that has been waiting for you all along. Your body knows the rest. Your brain knows the rest. Every cell in every tissue, in every system of this remarkable living thing that you are knows exactly what to do from here. And it will do it perfectly. And it will do it all night. And it will do it entirely without you needing to supervise or assist or even remain aware of any of it. All that is left now is the breathing. In slowly and the belly rising. Out slowly and everything releasing. In and the night deepening. Out and the last held tension of the last held thought dissolving completely into the warm and wordless and endlessly patient dark. Sleep well, dear listener. Sleep deeply and long and without interruption. You have earned every quiet moment of it.